I've known you for a little while. Some of you don't know me at all, but I'm a little bit obsessive about the testimony of the first 100. So I always tend to refer back to Alcoholics Anonymous' text. And I had this idea today in meditation and preparing to come deliver a message here, that there's a page in We Agnostics that always interested me about the testimony of the first 100. So what I thought I would do is sort of paraphrase that testimony from the first 100 in the book, and then I would align my story with that, because I think if we want to get well, if we want to get the experience that AA offers, that we should try and align our experience with the testimony of the first 100, because they're the ones that form the foundation, or at least the human foundation of the modern fellowship that we sit in, all the modern fellowship. So, they claim, the book is called Alcoholics Anonymous, the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. Did I tell you, Joe, I was an alcoholic, or did I assume it? Okay. Sometimes I assume that. Anyway, they testify that here are thousands of men and women, worldly indeed. They flatly declare that since they've come to believe in a power greater than themselves, to take a certain attitude toward that power, and to do certain simple things, they've had a revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking in the face of collapse and despair, in the face of the total failure of their human resources. They found that a new power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction flowed into them. This happened after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. That's the paraphrase of what they witnessed. So I want to tell you who I am, worldly indeed. I was raised in a middle-class family. I was not raised to be a bad guy by any respects. I was raised to just go to school and go out and make a living and whatever. My mother was a school teacher. My father was a business leader. My grandparents were political leaders. I went to college. I got a bachelor's degree in accounting. I got a master's degree in public administration. I went to England, to Cambridge in the UK. Went to school with royalty to learn about international management. I'm worldly.
Literally.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All of that did not prevent the total failure of my human resource. And nobody on the streets where I landed gave a shit about my Cambridge upbringing. Not that I didn't try and sell it. So, worldly indeed flatly declare, what did the total failure look like for me? I came to recovery quite a long time ago. I did a lot of cheering and rousing, but not a lot of spiritual growing. And I started achieving worldly things because when I stopped destroying myself on the regular with alcohol, I just did a little better. But I was always a little uneasy, a little uncomfortable, and when I went out and made a whole bunch of money, I one day figured that qualified me to go ahead and have a drink. And what I learned was that all those worldly successes that I had were not enough of a shelter to keep me from falling much further than I ever imagined I could fall. So I already told you who I was, so I told you in telling you that I was not equipped for what I was about to encounter. But on the way down, I lost the business that I had built. I lost the homes that I had purchased. I lost every worldly possession I had. I disappointed families, went through divorce, greatly harmed my children, greatly harmed my parents, greatly harmed anybody who took a risk at trying to like and support me. And in spite of my knowledge of that, I could not stop my downward spiral. And I ended up on the streets in Phoenix, Arizona, a homeless man. And so if any of you have ever experienced homelessness, you realize there's a state of delusion that goes with that. There's a period of time that I get some comfort from letting everyone know that I chose this. And I'm trying to tell you that, to tell you what I was like, the depths of my insanity. I was diagnosed with serious mental illness, not just addictive disorder. I really believed I chose homelessness. Only suckers pay rent. And anyway, it went on endlessly, and seemingly there was no way out. I will tell you today, I will testify to you today, everything but the flesh died. I was an empty shell of a man walking around with absolutely no identity in a world that demands identity. And from that place, I found myself in yet one more treatment, and I went to lots of treatments, places like this and others, and none of them took until one day, completely broken, a guy came in and he introduced me to this process that AA suggests, which is their step process, not so much to going to the meetings and having a fellowship around you and all that stuff, but actually internal stuff, you know, that power, peace, happiness, sense of direction they witness to. I really need power, peace, happiness, sense of direction flowing into me on the regular. That's what I tried to pour in from the outside, and once this guy explained to me that it was possible for me to tap into a well of power, peace, happiness, sense of direction, a sensory, tangible experience flowing into me and informing my steps, and he stood before me and he was every bit as bad as I had been. I knew that man wasn't lying because I could feel it. And so when that happened, even though I couldn't comprehend what he said, I knew I had to talk to him. So I asked him if he would show me how he learned what he knew. And he said something really weird to people like me that have been on the streets. Yes, I'd be honored. Some of you are laughing because you know the experience. It's like, wow. Some bitch said, yes, I'm going to have an obligation. Anyway, he said, you better call me when you get out. I'll come see you. We'll get going. I was in a lockdown, and I said, yeah, I will. And as he's walking out of the place, he turns back around before he went through the locked set of doors. And he says, on second thought, you don't look very good. You better call me before you get out. Probably a good idea. So I did. I called him before I got out. And anyway, he came to me and he met me and he introduced me to this power. I was still too dead in the spirit to know that's what he was doing, but he started taking me through the process. He started showing me the testimony of the first 100 in that book, the big book we call it around here, but that's really their story of how the first several thousand men and women recovered from alcoholism. And so what he explained to me is, I'm not telling you nothing, Joe, I'm showing you, because the book says to show others precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. So I'm not telling you nothing, I'm showing you that I was once as hopeless as you, and the power that restored me sent me to you. And I had no reason not to believe him, because he was bigger than shit, he was younger than me, he probably would have thumped me, and he was the only guy that had ever made sense to me about this whole AA thing in all the years I've been around. And anyway, he started pointing out to me, I started having the hair moving and skin crawling and fire coming on me, and he started telling me, that's the power we call God, Joe. And I'm like, trying to shake off the DTs. I had some other things that gave me comfort in my alcoholism, some opiate drugs and things. So I not only had DTs from alcohol withdrawal, I had morphine withdrawals and lots of other things. So I didn't comprehend well, but one thing that he impressed on me is I needed to stay busy and get busy. So I wasn't a guy who spent a lot of time dawdling in my steps. I went through the steps all the way through my 7-step prayer, and I already had my 8-step list by that time, because I did it when I did the inventory with him. My hand shook too bad, I could not write, so he wrote for me. And he said, you got to get busy, and he asked me one question, He said, how do you feel? And I said, I don't feel safe. And he said, if you don't feel safe, you're not safe. You better go start this process of amendments. So I'm just telling you what happened to me. I don't know what happens to everyone else, but I know some of you came in here for your 30-day chip. Dude, I had, whoever you are, I had so many freaking 30-day chips, under 30-day chips, 24-hour chips. I was coming up through the Cass homeless shelter. Any of you ever been to a meeting down there? Yeah. No matter what happens, everyone in the room takes a 24-hour chip down there. Because you ain't got nothing, you go get what they're giving away. I ain't making fun, I'm telling you the truth. I've supplied the 24-hour chips from my own stash for about 30 days down there. Fairly, because I had taken a few myself, right? But anyway, that's where I started. I started working at Cass in the face of collapse and despair. Having met this guy, having been introduced to the step process, this manner of living, I started giving back, I started helping people, and I will tell you that instantly I was radically transformed, but it took a little while for me to walk it out. If that makes any sense. Sometimes we don't think we're doing as good as we should be. Sometimes we don't think we are where we're supposed to be. I'm telling you, the journey is whatever it is. I've watched it thousands of times. And I'm not exaggerating, because some of you know me. I'm so situated now that I run a business where I get to see people come from very dark places, come into the light, and walk out successful human beings just as God designed. And I see it over and over and over. And so I know that this will happen for anybody that can hear the sound of my voice and can at least hear what I'm putting out. That makes sense? Yes. So in the face of collapse and despair and the total failure of their human resources, they found that a new power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction flowed into them. This happened soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. So those few simple requirements, I have come to find out, is learn to discipline my thought life, learn to own my emotional nature. Quit looking for reasons in the world for the way I think and feel, because the world has no power to cause me to think and feel. The world simply reflects how I'm thinking and feeling. And if no one's ever taught you that, that's what AA teaches. That's why we've ceased fighting anything or anyone. It's all illusion anyway. The victory's already won. I was a dead man. I did nothing to get alive. The power to live came into me. So, the few simple requirements, Dr. Bob says it in his story. Trust God. Not a theology, a sensory power found within the light of man. Clean house. Keep the inventory going. I cannot go where God's taken me dragging the baggage of yesterday. And then show others. Show others. So, at one time, I had a psychiatrist write a note for me, and he said, I'll paraphrase that this man has been under my care for the last 9 months. He actually had dates. Said he was incapable emotionally and mentally of conducting any personal affairs. That same man today helps to operate a treatment center. We've got 380 patients there at any given time. We mentor about 6,000 in the Arizona Department of Corrections.
Whoa.
Oh yeah. That's what God did for me.
Yes.
And he sent me here to tell you that in the face of collapse and despair, in the face of the total failure of my human resources, I have found that a new power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction has flowed into me and continued to flow from that day to present time. And I hope you felt some of the flow today. Thank you very much.